Okay, this is a reaction video. This is another one from I've done from World According to Briggs. Now, I did one 10 states that people regret moving to, and these are 10 states people never regret moving to. Now, I'm kind of curious to see what these are. I don't know any of the same ones that were on, because my state, Ohio, was one of the ones that people regret moving to. I don't know if some of the ones are going to be duplicates here, that we have a lot of people who regret and a lot of people who don't regret. And I'm wondering if states that are really, in my opinion, in the toilet are too expensive or too bad for their own good, not in the sense of that they're horrible places. Like, I think California is one of the prettiest states in the world to look at. I just think the way it's being run is terrible, just like New York at this point in time. I wonder if those states are on this list, because those are very expensive states to live in. But I would if I were to hazard a guess, because one of the other one was Florida. I don't think a lot of people regret moving to Florida. I think Florida might be on this list as well. I would think Colorado would be on this list, because Colorado is also a gorgeous state. But I'm kind of curious to see which states they are. I did the ones that people regret moving to. Let's see the ones that the people never regret moving to. So please click like, share, and subscribe for the World According to Briggs. And please click like, share, and subscribe for me. And let's see what this is all about.
Have you moved to another state in the last 5 years? What state was it, and are you happy with the move? This was a question I asked in a survey earlier this year.
And about Ohio, where I live, I've lived here since 1978. Okay, we moved here from Somerville, South Carolina, and I've been here all that time, and I don't foresee myself living anywhere else.
Here, I received about 3,500 responses, and I had an optional section for people to leave a comment about their move. About 23% left comments. What's strange about this is when I asked about states people regretted moving to, I had over 5,000 responses, and only about 9% left comments. This kind of tells me that we got more people that like the negative, the dark side of things.
Yeah, usually whenever you read reviews online about a certain restaurant you go to, or a place that you visit, usually the people who are upset about it will leave their reviews, and people who are happy generally don't tend to leave their reviews, because you had a good time. Basically, they met all your expectations. You're happy with what happened, so you move on. And unless you got extraordinary service, like I was in Billings, Montana. There's a hotel there called the Ledgestone Hotel. That was the softest bed I've ever slept in my life. If you're ever in Billings, Montana, the Ledgestone Hotel is the place to go to, because in my opinion, I've slept in 5-star hotels which had beds as hard as rock. This hotel had the softest bed that I ever slept on, and I never wanted to get off it. I mean, if I didn't have to go anywhere else, then if I didn't have to go anywhere else, I would have probably stayed there and never moved for the rest of my life. I would have had them deliver food to me there. It was such a soft hotel. It's soft bed in the hotel. So very, very good. But let's see what goes on with this one. 10 states people never regret moving to.
They're just not that committed. A little lazy. Kind of like Darth Vader working at a call center.
I don't believe it's laziness. Like I said, once you've had good experience and met your expectations, you're generally not going to write a review.
Another strange thing was we had some overlap. This was 2 different surveys done a couple months apart, and
that's what I was saying. I wonder if there's some states on here that people are on both lists.
A couple states made both lists. Now, even though I've explained that to you, that won't stop people from leaving comments like, "Hey Briggs, this state was on the other list that people regretted. Which is it?" Here's the answer. It's both. It is 2 different
just go, you probably just put in there, go to like 48 seconds in the video. It's all explained.
Surveys. People are different, and these surveys are based on opinions. It's not a math problem. There isn't a single answer. And honestly, that's my favorite part about human beings. We're all different, with many opinions and different experiences. And that's with everything in life. What food you like, what politics you believe in, which religions you follow, what kind of people you're attracted to. We're all different. And just because someone doesn't like barbecue and you love barbecue doesn't mean they're wrong. So just like the states people regretted moving to, I will list the states with the most votes and the reason that seemed to pop up most.
He's about to say the get it, got it, good part.
Often. Got it, get it, good.
Got it, get it, good.
Let's take a look. Number 10, Utah. Utah always seems to be a hot spot for people moving. It's safe, has great schools, it has
it's also one of the prettiest states in the United States. If you that area, Utah, Colorado, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming area that I was at last year, absolutely gorgeous.
Is one of the best or the best economy in the United States right now. Now, the best is different from the largest. The largest is California. Best means people are making money, businesses are making money, and people are moving to Utah. I said this recently in another video. I think if people could get past the fact that, the Mormon religion really has a lot to do with Utah, and I think that's kind of put a stereotype for the state in people's heads that really don't understand it. You don't have to be a Mormon to live in Utah. It helps, but you don't have to be one. The people that claim they're happy with their move to Utah often listed crime. They got a really low crime rate, they got good schools, and affordable housing. Now, that's going to vary from place to place. They do have some affordable real estate when you consider how nice the place is. Number 9, Idaho. So this is the first one that
Yeah, because Idaho was on a state that people regretted moving to, and now it's on one that people do not regret moving to. No, I've heard a lot of good things about Idaho.
Overlap. A lot of people said they regretted their move to Idaho, but I'd say just about as many loved their move to Idaho, so it's kind of 50-50. Idaho's been a hot spot for everyone moving in probably the last decade. A lot of Californians have moved up there, but according to the U.S. Census, so have a lot of Floridians, New Yorkers, and Texans. Idaho's another state that's relatively safe. They've got beautiful landscapes and plenty of open space. One of the biggest complaints on the other one is it's getting too crowded. Well, like I said in that video, if you don't want people to move to your state, make your state suck. People don't want to move places that suck. Nobody's moving to Louisiana these days.
I've never been to Idaho, so one of these days I will make it out there. I'd love to see Idaho. Idaho and Oregon are two states I'd really love to see.
Mississippi. In my opinion, I think one of the most overlooked places to move to in Idaho is Moscow, Idaho. And it's spelt Moscow, but it's pronounced Moscow. Whenever someone's moving to Idaho, you always hear them moving to Twin Falls, Idaho Falls, Pocatello, or Boise, and even Coeur d'Alene. In my opinion, I think Moscow is a little bit better. The reasons that popped up the most were cost of living and the great outdoors. You'll see.
Yeah, that's one thing I would understand about Idaho is the great outdoors. Cost of living is one thing because it's got to be cheaper than California, which is one of the next state over to the west. But the great outdoors, they have a lot of good ski resorts in Idaho.
See that on a lot of these. I've noticed states that people don't regret moving to have great outdoors. You'll see as we go along. Number 8, Virginia. Virginia all around is a pretty good state. I would say in the last 5 or 6 years,
I'm not the biggest fan of Virginia, but I don't hate it either. I mean, I've enjoyed times that I've been there, but I don't like it as much as I like West Virginia or Maryland.
really picked up a lot of momentum in their popularity, I guess you could say. A lot of people around the country are moving to Virginia. It seemed like before only people from the eastern seaboard would move to Virginia, or people that needed to work for the government. Overall, the state's crime isn't bad. They've got decent schools. Their healthcare is pretty good. And a lot of tech companies have moved to Virginia in the last 10 years, I would say. So these all help with its popularity. And one of the main reasons people listed why they love their move, they got a really good job in Virginia and they like their neighbors. Number 7, Montana.
Now, I just mentioned Montana because I was in Billings and I went to Little Bighorn in Montana. It's called Big Sky Country, and it is an amazing. I was just in the little southeastern part there. Unbelievable scenery there.
Montana's another one of those places that kind of makes the list on the great outdoors alone. I mean, that's one of the most common things that people brought up is they like the outdoor lifestyle and they like the small towns.
I'll tell you another thing I'll throw in there is when you drive in places like Wyoming and Montana, there's a lot of space between towns, and even down where I was, there was a lot of space between Little Bighorn and Billings, and you can you can go at there wasn't a lot of cars on the road, and you can go at pretty big good pace if you want to, and I recommend you pay attention to what you're doing when you're driving at all times, but that was also nice.
A lot of small towns in Montana have seen some pretty good growth in recent years, thanks to the remote worker movement. When I was living in California, a lot of people that I knew were moving to Montana, and Billings seemed to be the landing spot for most of them. It's also become very popular with a lot of celebrities. They all seem to be moving around the Jackson Hole area. And stop typing. Jackson Hole's in Wyoming, not Montana. All right.
I'm about to say, I don't know. I thought Jackson Hole was in Wyoming, but he said it before I did.
Be honest, in the comment section, how many of you started leaving a comment? But yeah, Montana does get its fair share of celebrities moving there. A lot of them will end up in Coeur d'Alene area or Whitefish. But the most common things I would say would be cost of living, cost of housing, and the great outdoors for this one also. Number 6, Vermont. Vermont's another one of those states.
My girlfriend went to Vermont for the first time last year and fell in love with it and wants to go back. It is absolutely gorgeous. I have never been to Vermont. Now, if you look, I don't know if you can see the map in the corner here, but I flew into Albany, and so I was literally miles from just going into Vermont. We ended up going into Massachusetts, in the northern part of heading towards Boston, so we didn't make it into Vermont. But Vermont has a great reputation for the outdoors.
That's just beautiful. Great skiing, great scenery, amazing small towns. And I think that's how it's got on the list. A lot of these small towns, again, are some of the ones that are benefiting from the remote worker craze. A lot of people hold the stereotype that Vermont is a state for older people. Well, they did have one of the...
I don't know if I would say that. I never really heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. But a lot of the old people, senior citizens in the United States, like to go down to Florida, then go up north or stay because they get a lot of snow in Vermont. I mean, there's a reason they call Florida God's waiting room. But Vermont, a lot of the senior citizens don't like the cold.
Oldest population overall for a long time. And then around 10 years ago, a lot of Generation X, Millennials, and Generation Z, or Zoomers, started moving into Vermont. Millennials and Generation Z are very much outdoor people, and Vermont has a lot of outdoor stuff to do. The reasons most often given for moving to Vermont, it's not as crowded and it has all the seasons. Now that's just something that someone from Texas, California, Arizona, Nevada say when they move someplace. They have all the seasons.
Yeah, because like in Florida, you only have it's pretty much warm. Now they do have a little bit of cold every now and then, but it's usually hot all year long. But up in the Midwest, you have a spring, you have a summer, you have a winter, you have a fall, you have the whole 9 years, or an autumn if you prefer.
Seasons, because in California, Nevada, and Texas, you really don't. Number 5, Washington State. There is this strange thing about Washington.
I've been to Washington. I've been up in the Seattle area, but again, a lot of these have great outdoors. A lot of these have fantastic outdoors, and Washington State is no different.
And I think a lot of people there are really bitter, and they're upset that they can't afford to live in their own state anymore. I think that's a big problem, at least in the comment section of any video.
Yeah, it's also very expensive, especially in Seattle. Some of the most gorgeous scenery, but it is expensive.
That I state the obvious. Washington is a very popular state to move to. In the last 3 or 4 years, the Evergreen State continually shows up in top 10 lists when you're talking about good things in a state. A lot of retirees are choosing Washington because it's one of the 9 states that doesn't have a state income tax. And I know they got other taxes and things like that. I get it. But they don't have a state income tax, and to a lot of people, that's very...
Yeah, Florida and Texas also don't.
Very important. Sure, Seattle has a lot of problems with homeless, crime, and extremely expensive rent and real estate prices. But the entire state is not Seattle. Southern Washington is becoming an option for a lot of people, especially down near the Portland area. It's right across the river from Portland, Oregon, with half the problems and lower rent and real estate prices. When it came to the reasons people gave for loving their move to Washington State, it was all over the map. There's tons of different reasons and nothing really stood out above all the rest, even though one person did say they wanted to live closer to the original Starbucks. I've been to that.
I don't give a rat's rear about the original Starbucks. However, I've been to I think the world's largest Starbucks is in Chicago. I have been to that one.
Starbucks. It's not that exciting. I've never actually been inside that Starbucks because there's
That's the fish market.
Always a line like 30 minutes long. I just want to stop at that line and go, people, it's just coffee. There's a Starbucks 4 blocks away with no line. Number 4, Colorado. Colorado is
Yeah, Colorado was one of the states that I thought would be on the list, and it is.
another one that's drawn in the millennials
And no surprise, California and New York are not on this list, at least not yet.
and the Gen Z. Years ago, it was pulling in the Gen X and everyone else, and most of it has to do with the great outdoors. The Rocky Mountains right there, every kind of skiing, hiking, camping, fishing, rafting, kayaking. They got it all in the Centennial State. Denver isn't as nice as it used to be, but the rest of the state is outstanding in most places. The most common answers for wanting to move to Colorado was to be closer to nature or some other wording. It all boiled down to people wanted to be closer to nature.
Again, I flew into Denver last year and went to the northern part of Colorado, up into southern Wyoming from there, and then came back through Nebraska. Really beautiful scenery, no question about it.
Number 3, Minnesota. This one
Again, Minnesota, I've only been to the airport through Minnesota, so I've never really had a chance to see it, but I know it's the place of 10,000 lakes.
kind of surprised me. I mean, Minnesota's a nice state. It does have Minneapolis and St. Paul, and they've got some issues there, but most of the state is another one that's great for people that want to be outdoors. It's affordable in both cost of living and real estate and rent, I guess. They have amazing small towns. They have lakes everywhere. It's the state of 10,000 lakes, land of 10,000 lakes, whatever. And it gets very cold, but not everyone hates the cold. So, yeah, the most common reason for being happy with the move to Minnesota, it was always around cost of living or real estate, something like that. Basically, affordability was a big thing for people moving to Minnesota. I did see a strange amount, wasn't number 1 or anything like that, but there was a lot of people that mentioned fishing. They said they like to fish. They want to move to Minnesota.
A lot of people who've been to Minnesota speak very highly. I've never heard anybody speak poorly of Minnesota. I've heard people speak poorly of other states that are out there, but I've never heard them speak poorly of Minnesota.
Where they can fish all the time. All right, if that's what gets your motor going, go with it. Number 2, Wisconsin. Yes, the
And right next to Minnesota is Wisconsin, and that's pretty much the same area, probably the same reasons.
Badger State shows up at number 2. And why not? It's a great place to live, especially if you've got a family. I've
Never been to Wisconsin. The closest I've been is Chicago. In Chicago, Wisconsin is just north of Chicago.
would say one of the top 5 states to raise a family in. Low crime, good schools, lots of outdoor activities. I mean, statewide, not just in some city or something like that. Wisconsin really only has one city that has any notable crime, and that's Milwaukee. And when you compare Milwaukee to places like Memphis, Detroit, or Chicago or something like
Probably don't even match up. Also their cheese is fantastic. I mean, I've heard a lot. Again, that Minnesota and Wisconsin heard a lot of great things about it.
that, it's not that terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And those are the two most common
Wisconsin Badgers at the University of Wisconsin is in Madison.
reasons given for being happy with their move to Wisconsin. It's a great place for families, and it has a low crime rate. You just got to deal with some pretty brutal winters like you do in Minnesota. And
Yeah, up in that area, you get a lot of brutal. I mean, especially January and February, it is absolutely cold, freezing, and if you don't like the cold, it's not a place to live in during the winter months.
Vermont, and even parts of Colorado. One person did mention they love Wisconsin, but they did have a problem with the people there. They said that they're from New Jersey, and the people in Wisconsin are really nice, so you think they're up to something. He said, coming from New Jersey, if someone's too nice for you, you put your hand on your wallet and make sure they're not trying to get it.
Yeah, that's a little bit different between New Jersey and Wisconsin, no question.
All right, before we get to number 1, 2 states that almost made this list. Number 12 was Oregon, and number 11 was Maine. Also, if you're thinking about moving to another
Again, never been to Oregon, but I've been to Maine, and I can certainly understand why people would regret. Again, a lot of these come down to the outdoors. Okay, I've not that if there's a common denominator, it's the outdoors. If you like the outdoors, then these are the states you're going to go to. Okay, a lot of these states are really gorgeous states to look. And keep in mind, the states that are on the list are not like Ohio. I don't think is going to be number 1, but it's still a gorgeous state. All states have their beauty, but there are some that just have it in a little bit more abundance than the others do.
state and you need a real estate agent, there's a link for Home and Money down below, and they can help you find a real estate agent anywhere in the nation, along with some other things they do on that website. All right, on to number one. And number one, Wyoming. Yes,
Okay, Wyoming.
Wyoming is one of those states that not many people regret moving to.
Now, Wyoming has, I think, the smallest population of any state in the United States. And I can understand that. Again, I saw Wyoming for the first time last year. Usually one of the things you see when you move into or not move, but when you go to a state is, we'll stop and get a drink at the next McDonald's. Okay, well, guess what? At least, granted, I went right around Cheyenne. Okay, I saw 3 McDonald's in the whole state. Okay, we didn't see a place you could pull off for literally hundreds of miles in Wyoming. Okay, it's and I may be over exaggerating a little bit. I don't know, but it is absolutely barren there, and I can understand, because if you want to be left alone and you like the outdoors, this is the place to move to.
Matter of fact, it beat number 2 on this list of Wisconsin by a good amount. Wyoming, like Montana and Idaho, it's one of those states that's been gaining popularity out west in the last 5.
And that's also the other thing about it. The common denominator on all these things are outdoors. People love beauty, and the beauty of the outdoors in the United States. There's not an abundant. There's not a. There's a lot of places to look at that are gorgeous with the scenery and everything like that, but the outdoors. These are the states you move to.
5, 6, 7 years. As Washington and Oregon kind of slowed down, they've picked up the slack. And it's not just Californians moving to Wyoming. They get a lot of New Yorkers moving there, and a lot of Texans also. A lot of wealthy people have really nice homes in the Jackson area, like their second home, their vacation home, whatever. Wyoming is a very beautiful state, and that's another one of the reasons people want to move there. They want to be closer to nature. Affordability, nature, and not that many people live in Wyoming. Those were the main reasons people said they're happy with their move to the Cowboy State. All right.
Well, okay, that's interesting. Some of the states there, some were on both lists, but still interesting. 10 states people never regret moving to. Please click like, share, and subscribe for me, and like, share, and subscribe for The World According to Briggs. He does a lot of these great videos. I love reacting to them, and hope you enjoyed my reactions. But thanks for watching. Please click like, share, and subscribe, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.